Hey everybody, welcome to Musical Reviews with Mr. V. In these videos we're going to be reviewing musical concepts that we've learned in our instrumental lessons. Today's review is about the treble staff. And by treble staff we mean the musical staff as it relates to instruments that play in the treble clef. So let's take a look. First of all, and in its most simple sense, the musical staff is really nothing more than 5 parallel lines that travel across the page. Our musical staff is 5 parallel lines that travel across the page. Let's look at those lines. The bottom line is line number 1. Now, anytime you count anything in music, you begin counting at the bottom and work your way up. So that's what we're going to do. We always talk about the bottom line being line number 1, and then of course above that is line number 2. Above line 2 is line number 3, which is the middle line of the musical staff. Then we go up to line 4, and then finally the top line is line number 5. So lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, beginning at the bottom and working your way up. 5 lines. The musical staff also has 4 spaces. So a space is that empty white area between any 2 neighboring lines of the musical staff. And these spaces have numbers as well. Just like the lines, we're going to begin counting from the bottom. The bottom space is space number 1. And then we move up to space number 2. All right, the empty space between 2 lines. And then we go up to space number 3. And then, of course, the top space is space number 4. So, just another quick review. A musical staff is 5 parallel lines that travel across the page, and a space is the empty area between any 2 neighboring lines. All right? And that's the main idea about a musical staff. Now, for you treble clef instrument players, you're going to have your treble clef at the beginning of every one of your musical staffs. Got our treble clef there. The treble clef is also called the G clef. Now, I've always called it the treble clef and not the G clef, but it's good to be aware that it's also called the G clef. Now, the reason is if you take that big round area in the middle of the treble clef and look at it as a target, that target area in the middle points to the line G. Okay, and that's why it's called the G clef as well. But I'll refer to it as the treble clef. Now, we've numbered the lines, we've numbered the spaces. Let's take a look at what these lines and spaces are called. Every line has a name. So there's our musical staff, our treble clef. And let's look at that line number 1 at the bottom. That line is called E. Now that means that anytime a note is on that line, that note takes its name from the line. So it's called an E. All right? Now, for a note to be on the line, and let's review that quickly. For a note to be on the line means that if you were up in the sky looking down at someone sitting on the fence, that's what it would look like when a note is on the line. Okay, these notes are on the line. So the bottom line is called E, which means anytime there's a note on the bottom line, it's called E and we play E. The second line is called G. A note on the third or middle line is called B. A note on the fourth line is D, and the notes on the top line are all Fs. Now, this pattern, E, G, B, D, F, can easily be remembered by using the sentence we talked about way back when. Every good boy does fine. So you take E and make a word out of it, every. Then you go up to G, good boy does fine. So if you're looking for a note on the third line and can't remember what it's called, you begin your sentence on the bottom line and say one word for every line until you get to that note on the third line. Every good boy. Third line is called B. All right, and that helps you out. Now, just like counting begins on the bottom and goes up, so our sentence has to also. You must begin using every on the bottom line and use the sentence going up from there. If you start on the top line and go down, you won't get the correct notes for anyone but B. All the others will be wrong. So always use your sentence starting from the bottom line. Every good boy does fine. Now you can remember that every good boy does fine is the trick to remember the names of the lines and not the spaces because, well, there's 5 lines and there's 5 words in that sentence. Every good boy does fine. Also, the last word of the sentence, fine, rhymes with line. So every good boy does fine will work for the lines. Okay, that's our trick for the lines. Now let's move on to the spaces. Every space also has a name. That bottom space is called F. All right, so to remember, for a note to be in a space means it's not crossing any line. It's stuck in between two lines written on that empty space there. Bottom space is called F, that first space. The second space is called A. Third space is called C, and the top or fourth space is called E. Easily remembered because, well, it spells the word face. F-A-C-E. Okay? And you can remember that face is the way to remember the spaces because, well, there's 4 letters in the word face, and there's 4 spaces in the main part of the musical staff. Also, the word face rhymes with space. So think of space face. All right? Every good boy does fine for the lines and space face. All right, let's look at all these notes on the staff at the same time. Here's our treble clef on the musical staff, and let's bring in our notes. Under the word lines, you see the names of the lines. Every good boy does fine is the trick we use. E on the bottom, G, B, D, and F. Under the word spaces, you see the notes that are in the spaces from bottom to top. They spell the word face. Now, you could kind of travel diagonally and see that from the bottom line note E, if you travel to the right diagonally, you go to F, which is in the first space. Then travel back to the second line, G. Travel over to the spaces A. Then you move up to the B line, up to the C space, up to the D line, up to the E space, up to the F line. All right? So every good boy does fine for the lines, and the spaces spell face. Those are the names of the lines and spaces of our treble clef musical staff. All right, that's our first review, the treble staff. If there's anything in there that's not clear to you, go back and watch again. You could also email me any questions. Thanks for watching Musical Reviews with Mr. V. Hope you enjoy it. Check back for more videos coming soon.